You are now in session with Mr. Clark. Everybody repeat after me. Say, I can identify equivalent fractions by matching their shaded part. Equivalent means equal to, or another way of saying that we would say is the same amount as something else. So let's look at an example. 1/2 we would say is equivalent to 2/4. If we look at 2/4, we notice that the same amount of area is shaded as in 1/2. The only thing that's different is that there are now two smaller slices instead of one slice and a half. So 1/2 has one bigger slice, 2/4 has two smaller slices. But we would still say they are equivalent because there's still the same amount of green part shaded as in 1/2 as there is in 2/4. We could keep this pattern going, finding more equivalent fractions. So we get 3/6. We could get another 4/8. And we would say these are all equivalent fractions. The only thing different is that they've been cut into smaller slices, but they are all equal. And we know they are equivalent because they all have the same amount of area shaded in a circle that is the same size. So we would say 1/2 is equivalent to 2/4, is equivalent to 3/6, and is equivalent to 4/8. These are all the same fraction. Let's see if we can use this idea to find fractions that are equivalent to 1/4. So here's 1/4. Now, which of these given ones are equivalent to 1/4? So when you try to answer this, you want to try to find the ones that have the same amount of parts or area shaded as 1/4. Now, if we look at this first one, I see it's got 1 out of 4 parts shaded, which is the same thing as 1/4 that was given to us. Even though it's in a different spot, it's still equivalent. Now if we look at the next one to the right, it's got 3 bars shaded, so that one is not equivalent. Now if we look to the one to the right of that, it's got 8 smaller pieces and 2 are shaded. But we still say it's equivalent because there's the same amount of blue parts shaded. If we look at the one under it, we notice there's still 2 of those little parts shaded. So we're still going to say that's equivalent to it. And if we look at the one to the left in the middle at the bottom, we see that there's even smaller pieces it's cut into, but it's still equivalent because it's the same amount of area shaded as our original fraction 1/4. So we're going to circle that one and say it's equivalent. And then our last one left here, we notice just by looking at it that it has more blue parts shaded than 1/4. So we're going to X that one out and say that it is not equivalent. So let's look at the fractions that we said are equivalent, and we're going to name them. This first one right here, it's still got 1 out of 4 shaded, so we're going to say it's 1/4. This next one, you notice there's a lot of little slices. If we count them all up, we'll see there's 16 in all and 4 shaded. So we're going to say that that is 4/16. Now the next one, we see that there's 2 shaded and that there's 8 total little boxes. So we're going to say that one is 2/8. And then the last one is still the same thing, even though the blue part's in a different spot. It's still 2/8. So we say all these fractions are equivalent because they have the same amount of shaded parts. Even though they might be in different spots or they might have more little parts, they are all equivalent. So 2/8 and 4/16 are equivalent to 1/4. So remember, equivalent means that fractions are equal to each other, or that 2 fractions have the same amount shaded. Thank you for watching. Peace out.
Created using Powtoon.